لا رجال إلا بمال ولا مال إلا برجال، فهذه الحياة.
الرجال هي اللي تصنع سعادته، الرجال هي اللي تصنع حياته، الرجال اللي هي تصنع حاضرها ومستقبلها. كل ما طال الوقت كل ما يعطي الاتحاد قوة ودفعه للعمل.
Hi, welcome to a new episode of Future of Business. Today we are happy to have Ms.Sarah Malik, the owner of Sol International. Welcome, Mrs. Sarah.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And you as well.
Okay. Can you tell us about your career and why you started Sol International?
So my journey started in London. I've been a lawyer for 26 years and I was at the bar, the UK bar. So as a grounding as a barrister, I was taught about discipline, about clarity, about advocacy. So it gave a great foundation. I came to UAE about 13 years ago and I headed the disputes and investigation team of an international law firm. And I saw a niche in the market where clients wanted a boutique legal practice. They wanted somebody to take ownership of a case from the start to the end. And sometimes big law doesn't allow that. Partners will get out and get the cases and then it's filtered through to teams. So I wanted to establish a small boutique practice where I could take care of clients from start to finish and they could come to me as their first port of call. And therefore Sol was established.
Yeah. What values guide your work and how you deal with the clients?
So for me, the most important is clarity, integrity and standards. Once you've come to lawyers and once you come to disputes lawyers, you're at the end. You know, it's a very reluctant spend. People are stressed out when they've come to us and it's our job to handle that. So for me, we need to be absolutely clear in our communication with clients. They need to trust us. We need to tell them what they don't want to hear sometimes because as lawyers, I always like to look at the case holistically. I don't want to just tell you what you want to hear. I want to tell you the truth. So I'll never compromise on that. And I believe that clients, when they develop that trust in you, that you're going to tell them exactly how it is, they will come to you and you'll get repeat business over and over from just a word of mouth. So I think you should always be very clear and in your standards and just say what you do and do what you say.
Yeah. How do you handle the challenges during difficult times?
During difficult times, you need to bring order to chaos, right? You need to ensure that you've got clarity when there's pressure. And the first thing you have to do is keep calm. And you also have to listen and you have to understand and you have to provide solutions. That's why clients come to you. They don't need you to be kind of, all over the place when they need solutions and guidance from you. So in difficult moments, the clients are dealing with commercial pressures, they're dealing with legal issues, they're dealing with the leadership teams being pulled in different directions. They're looking at saving the business, they're looking at saving employees. And as a lawyer, you have to go in holistically, not just to tell them about the law, but strategically and operationally to look at the business as a whole and see how do we survive. You need to look at immediate protection, you need to look at long-term plans, you need to look at everything from different angles. What happens if this happens, what happens if that, and you need to have a plan that caters for everything. So in matters of crisis or in times of crisis, you don't just need to know the law, you need to understand the business, you need to understand survival, you need to know how to think under pressure, and you need to be able to make decisions and strip away emotion. Unfortunately, sometimes decisions are delayed because people are very emotional, but what we don't do is bring that emotion in. We look at commercials, we look at clarity, we look at decisions, tough decisions that need to be made. So we look at data, we look at everything. It's not just legal anymore. It's not easy sometimes, but it has to be done.
Yeah. So what types of cases are more common now?
So you're getting a lot of kind of breach of contract. You're getting people who want to get their money in. So disputes maybe or letters before action because people are concerned. They want to make sure that they're liquid in cash. You're getting questions around, can this contract be terminated? Is it force majeure? Do I have a get out? There's sometimes issues in supply chain. Some of the service industries are hit quite badly or, they're affected and therefore you have front-facing questions around can we reduce employee salaries? Can we have temporary reductions? How do we lay people off? These kind of issues in terms of delay, in contracts, termination of contracts are becoming more and more apparent, and they always do in times of crisis. Businesses are well advised to get lawyers involved earlier, so we are proactive in our approach and not reactive, and therefore we can advise the business properly. So we will look at everything, whether it's mitigation, notice requirements, the steps that needs to be taken, both for the business to survive and for its personnel. So there's competing interests sometimes in times like this, where founders of businesses, they look at their cash flow, they look at their projections, they look at what projects have stopped, and they need to survive, but equally they look at their teams. And again, sometimes tough decisions need to be made, and we push our clients to make those decisions because delay is dangerous in times like this.
Yeah. How do you global events affect people and the business?
So global events, look, what's a headline then becomes a legal reality. So anything that's happening, not just now, but generally, global events affect business. They affect business in different ways, right? So in terms of like regulatory challenges, compliance, we're in a country where we sometimes are playing catch up to regulatory challenges. We're a very young country. We've done very well for ourselves. But there's a lot of kind of compliance issues that happen. So where there's sanctions, we have to ensure as lawyers that our clients are not dealing with, sanctioned individuals or countries, or where they're not allowed to. So we have to advise on issues such as AML and KYC to make sure that our clients know source of funds, etc. Also things like economic shifts, if there's differences in or there's delays in supply chains, how that will affect our clients. We have to think about that. Layoffs, delayed payments, all of these issues that happen at a global level filter down to businesses globally, and lawyers have to be astute and ensure that they're on top of all of those changes and able to advise on those changes. And also it affects individuals. So it's not just the businesses. Individuals are then affected. Individuals come to us, whether it's their employment security. And if there is employment security, then that has a knock-on effect of them being able to pay rent, for example, to landlords. So there's a whole kind of circular effect that comes from top down when there are global changes or economic shifts. Headlines make legal then filters down through the chain, if you like.
Yeah. Now, let's go to see the report. Welcome back, Mrs.
Thank you.
How does playing ahead help in solving legal problems?
So if you think ahead, you're then proactive, and you're already thinking about worst case, best case scenarios. If this happens, and this is the outcome. If this happens, and that. You can't just be reactionary, right? The best lawyers amongst us and the businesses that survive are those who have preventative measures. They have crisis management measures. They plan for A, B, C, and D. So if it hits, you're ready. The worst thing to do is to sit back and be reactive. Oh, this has happened, so what do I do now? It's a very expensive lesson, and it's often too delayed. So what we encourage businesses to do is it doesn't start when, a dispute is drafted. It starts from contracts. When you're drafting your contracts, get your lawyers to look at it. Make sure you've got your termination clauses in order. Make sure you've looked at things like, if this contract doesn't go ahead, what's a clawback provision? How do I get out? Any good contract lawyer will tell you that when people go into business together, everybody's happy, right? So they're drafting something that, we're all going to make money. But good lawyers will say you need to have your exit terms already drafted in your contract, because things can go wrong and you don't want to then deal with it at that stage. How are you going to get out the contract? What's your notice provision? Is there a cure period? Things like that. So we need to ensure that we're on top of the game and we're thinking ahead. So therefore, if a crisis does occur, or, whether it's A, B, or C, we're already prepared and not wasting time thinking at that stage of what do we do now.
Yeah. So how do you create a solution that affects each client?
So not every single client is not the same, right? People have different commercial backgrounds. People have different appetite for legal. We have a different structured approach. So we have fixed fees, we have blended fees, we have hourly rates, we have, project by project, we have staged payments. So we understand the client, we understand the business, and we come to a solution that works both for the client and for us. So for example, I have hourly rates that I charge out for my time, but that doesn't work for every single client. We have some clients that are retainer clients, and we do long-term business with them. And therefore, we know how much work we're going to do and what price we're going to do it at. So we really need to understand the industry of the client. We need to understand their appetite. We need to understand their commercial reality. We need to understand their vision. We want to grow with them. We're not the kind of firm that just comes in and comes out. Most of the client base I have are people we have grown with and, we've served for many, many years since we've been around. And that's the relationships I like to keep. Obviously, we do have some cases where it's the one-off. They come to us for a litigation or arbitration. But predominantly, most of our client base are those who have stayed and come with us and kind of utilize us going forward, both to do the preventative work and if they do fall into any issues. So I think as lawyers, we need to understand that not every client is the same. And we need to understand their industry and business, and therefore we can do the best job for them.
Yes. So what advice do you give to people facing legal problems?
In today's day and age, is firstly, don't panic. There's always a solution. You just have to think about that. And we are solutions oriented, right? You pay lawyers not for their legal advice, but for a solution, for their strategy, because they have the ability to see through what's going to happen. So the first thing I'll say to business in uncertain times especially is just don't panic. Sit down. Make sure you do a holistic overview. Where are you at with your business? What do you need to do to survive, right? What can you cut back on? Sit with your management team. Be open in your communication. That's very, very important. You have to simplify. You have to make decisions, and you have to make decisions fairly quickly. You can't sit on the fence because delay is very dangerous. Sometimes delay is worse than not making a decision at all. You have to keep records. You have to ensure that things are documented because otherwise, in the future, you can't show what actually was agreed or happened. And I would also say to businesses to make sure that they take the advice, they bring on board their people, they communicate properly. Communication is huge in business and in personal relationships. Sometimes businesses fall or relationships fail because of the lack of communication. People are not understanding each other because it's not being said. So it's simple things like that. So we go in and we kind of try to fix a problem by first taking the temperature down, calming everybody, saying, okay, let's find a solution. We don't sit in the problem. We look at everything like, this is the solution. This is how we're going to manage it. And again, we strip away emotion. Sometimes people don't like us because we'll go in and say, actually, we need to do X, Y, and Z. But that's why you do bring in the lawyers, because we look at it from a very kind of, objective viewpoint to save the business or help the individual rather than coming from a place of emotions. And if you're involved in the business or you're the founder, obviously you're emotional about your business. So people need to understand that when there is uncertainty, times like this is where discipline matters absolutely the most. That's why you can't be vague. You need to be very clear in what you're doing. You need to communicate and you need to execute. Don't sit around. And you need to be organized.
Yeah. How important is the clear communication with the clients?
It's very important. Clients are not just coming to us for legal advice. They're coming because we're their trusted advisor. They want to know the bottom line. They want to know, am I going down? Is there a problem? Should I pull out of this? Is there a settlement to be done? What shall I do to save myself or save the business? So it's not always about, I want to win. And actually we say to clients, and I do, look, don't throw good money after bad. If there's an easier way to get out of this, let's do it. We do ourselves out of work. It's easy for me to say, oh, let's fight, let's go to court, I make money. But that's not how we operate. We're like, let me get the best deal for you. Let me get you out of this situation the best way. And sometimes going to court is not the best way. So I think as a lawyer, you have to put yourself in your client's shoes, understand what they want, understand what the end result will be. And sometimes you might win and you might say you've got a great case. But if they win and they can't enforce their judgment or award, what's the point of that win? They've spent a lot of money and the only winner is me. So we look at being absolutely transparent when we communicate with our clients and say, okay, this is my advice and you might not find it attractive and you might want to go to court and your ego's been hurt or, you feel you've been wronged, but that's not going to, help your pocket and it's going to cost you a lot. So maybe this is the way. Sit down and do a settlement or think about, X, Y, or Z. So we give a different approach. And I think that transparency and communication is key. Also, when a dispute or any matter is ongoing, we keep our clients fully informed. We don't just kind of drop them a bill and say, hey, pay me. This is going on. This is what we think. This is a strategy. And clients appreciate that because they're involved and they feel that they know what's going on rather than, hiding behind, lawyers not telling you what's going on. Also, we have to be very simple in our approach. I need to talk to you in a language you understand. There's no point me giving you, heavy legal wording. You need to understand what I'm saying for you to have trust in me. So we break it down and say, okay, this has happened. These are our options. We go here, we go there. What do you want to do? This is my advice. And then they take a decision.
Yeah. What advice you give to people who want to work in this field?
I think youngsters need to build depth before they chase visibility. In this day and age, with all the kind of social media and everything that's going on, people just want, to be visible. But I think you should be visible when you've built your depth. You need to really understand what you're doing. You need to, firstly, have a passion for what you're doing, right? I love the law, which is why I'm in the profession for so long. I breathe law. It's something that gets me out of bed. Now, if you're just doing law for a job, it's not a great job to go into because it's very time consuming, it's very stressful. So I think build your depth, know why you're doing what you're doing, and learn how to think clearly, master your art, know what you're talking about. You can't just improvise, you must become very astute and very learned in what you're doing. Secondly, I think youngsters should take advantage of using AI and tech. I mean, they are the best place to be able to bring those tools into our profession. We're a very old traditional profession, but AI and technological change is massive. And they can use that to their advantage because they know how to navigate things and they know how to bring that, to get the best possible outcomes. And I think lawyers need to learn how to work with AI the same way we do with Word and PowerPoint. Thirdly, you need to become commercially aware, not just legally astute. Now, you might have been the best student in law school and you might have, aced it and got a first, but businesses don't just want to know the law, they want solutions. So you need to understand your client, you need to understand the business, you need to put yourself in their shoes and then you give the best advice. So you need to know about risk, you need to know about timing, you need to know about power, you need to know about problems that are carried with legal consequences so you can address it all holistically. And finally, I think the best piece of advice I can give to youngsters is protect your name. Your integrity, your reputation is absolutely everything in this profession, right? People come to you and people will keep coming to you if your name stands up, right? And many lawyers should know from the beginning that your reputation is your if you like, your net worth. Because if you have a great reputation, people come to you naturally and say, we've heard about you, we've seen you, we've been referred to you. And if you let your reputation go, or if you start compromising on your reputation, then you're losing before you're starting. So I think you should always remember that you need to be reliable. Don't exaggerate. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Do what you're going to say you do, and do it properly. And if it's not something you can do, don't do it. I will not take on work that I don't know about. I don't care for the money, right? It's my reputation's everything. If you came to me with a dispute and I don't know anything about that area of law, it's tax law, for example, I'm not going to take your money and pretend to you, I'm a lawyer for 25 years so I can do your tax dispute. I can't.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. And that's my reputation on the line. Because if I mess that up, you'll go and say, well, she wasn't very good. And as lawyers, our last case is the most important one we do. You're as good as your last case. Nobody cares about a 26-year history if I mess up a case because I've taken something on that I don't know about. So anyone entering the profession, I would say, enjoy what you do. Make sure you do it properly. Make sure you know what you're doing. Take advantage of tech and always protect your credibility at all costs. The legal landscape will always change, but your reputation, your value, your excellence will never go up.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sarah. Nice to meet you.
And you too. Thank you very much for hosting me.